You're listening to Power Talk, Berkeley Electric Cooperative's official broadcast about the cooperative, our communities, and ways to use energy wisely. And now, let's join our hosts for today's episode. Good morning and welcome to Power Talk. I am Micah Ponce, the Communications and Media Specialist here at Berkeley Electric Cooperative, joined by my co-host, Ms. Libby Roig, the Director of Marketing and Communications.
Good morning, Micah.
Good morning. We have another full studio. We always like it when we have guests.
Lots of friends.
Lots of friends. One of them who is our Public Relations Representative, Ms. Brianna Johnson.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Micah.
And then our very special guest, Ms. Michel'le Cathey, the Associate Director of the ARK of South Carolina, the Alzheimer's Family Support Services. There we go. I got it all in one mouthful.
Got it all.
Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things that we do after we give you our ceremonial mug for being part of the Power Talk family.
Tune into YouTube to see what the Power Talk mug looks like.
It's the envy of the Low Country.
It is.
It is. It's a great mug.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that we ask new folks who come on our show is to just get started by telling the audience a little bit about yourself and your background and how you came to be with the ARK.
Okay. Well, first, thank you so much for having me to talk about the
Absolutely.
ARK. Something I'm passionate about, obviously. So the ARK was founded in 1996 by Peg Laymeyer. She's the executive director and founder. And so for the past 28 years, we have been serving the Low Country and caregivers. She very graciously hired me in 2016. Right out of college and gave me an opportunity. And so I started off as the admin assistant and then worked my way up to special events coordinator. And then now I'm the associate director and just loving the opportunity to be able to serve our caregivers and community through the ARK.
And we're so glad to have you on the show and to learn more about the services that the ARK provides. So it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. The ARK is, I would say, very vital for the community because of the fact that when Peg established the ARK, she saw a need that wasn't being fulfilled. And so she was inspired by that, as well as the fact that she was caregiving full time for her mom, as well as raising kids in the home. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot going on. And
that sandwich generation.
Sandwich generation,
mm-hmm.
exactly. And so she decided that she was going to talk to some community members, and they got together and with the help of St. Luke's Lutheran Church, they decided to start an outreach program. And so they started, like I said, in 1996, and then from there grew from a one-day respite program to what it is today, which is 5 days a week that we are serving caregivers through respite, as well as an early memory loss program, in addition to numerous support groups and education and just all the things. Any way we can help a caregiver.
All the many things.
All the many things.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So you mentioned outreach, and we actually connected as part of my work on behalf of the cooperative, focusing on outreach to the community. So as a not-for-profit electric utility, Berkeley Electric is governed by 7 cooperative principles, including one of our favorites here, concern for community. We love to serve the community here in many different ways. While we focus on members' needs, cooperatives work to develop their communities by encouraging economic development, promoting education, and advocating safe use of electricity, because we always have to throw that part in there.
Always. Safe, affordable power.
Yep.
So we're super happy to have you on the show today to share some information about the ARK of South Carolina. So I know you told us a little bit about the ARK's history, but can you give us a little more details about, the services that you offer to the community?
Absolutely. Let's take a deep dive, shall we? So we have a social respite program. It is strictly social, non-medical. It operates for just under 4 hours a day, and that operates Tuesday through Thursday in Somerville, and then we have a satellite program on Wednesdays in Harleyville. That program is specifically designed to allow caregivers a break to do whatever they need to do in those 4 hours, whether it's going to the dentist, doctor's appointments, lunch with friends, hitting the golf balls at the range, whatever that might be for them. Running errands, to where they don't have to take their loved one with them, or, again, if they're in that sandwich generation, they don't have to take their kids and aging mom and dad to go do all the things, right? Yeah. And so that's what that program is specifically designed for.
And what days and hours does that run?
So it's Tuesday through Thursday in Somerville from 10 a.m. to 1:45.
Okay.
And then in Harleyville, it's on every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 1:45. Okay. In Somerville, we do provide transportation for the caregivers within a 13-mile radius of the ARK. And so that actually gives the caregivers a little bit more of an extra stretch and a break. So that's really nice. Unfortunately, we don't offer transportation in Harleyville at this time, but we are working on it.
Awesome.
And then in addition to that, we have an early memory loss program that operates every other Monday of the month, as well as every Friday. And so the early memory loss program is called the Navigation Club. And the Navigation Club is really meant for someone who might be having early memory loss symptoms, or they might just be concerned about brain health, and they can come and have fun in a social club and learn about how to maintain their brain health. So we focus on 5 main components in that club called mindfulness, nutrition, physical activity, socialization, and cognitive activities. And through those 5 components, they learn how to maintain a healthy brain. They also get homework that they get sent home with them every Friday. And so when they come back the next week, we review the homework. And I'm telling you, that trivia and the homework they do, it breaks my brain.
Yeah, I've seen people take the memory test. I'm like, I can't pass that.
Yeah, no. It's a really good program, like I said, for people who just are concerned about their memory or maybe just concerned about brain health. But in addition to that, it's also if you are having an early diagnosis or if you've gone to the doctor and you're starting to see some changes, it's a really good way to start at the ARK, and then we can figure out other ways to get you involved.
Yeah, I think my wife is worried about my memory already. Either that or my hearing. I'm not sure which. One of the two. I might find myself over in Somerville before too long.
We would love to help. But in addition to that, so we are certified through the Alzheimer's Foundation of America through the National Memory Screening Program. So we can do a 15 to 20 minute memory screening. It's not diagnostic. It's meant for just a starter conversation with your doctor, or to really just start a conversation with the family in general. You know, I've noticed some changes, or mom and dad, or whoever has noticed changes. And so we use it as a tool for them to start the conversation and start planning ahead. Additional programs we offer we have 5 support groups we facilitate in Dorchester County. So we've got 2 in the upper region of Dorchester County, and then we've got 2 in Somerville, and then we've also got a virtual one. And again, that's just for the caregivers to have a safe space to talk about what's going on with them and to feel support and to know that they're not alone. Yeah. And then, of course, we have our education and outreach is through the NOAA project. So NOAA stands for Neighborhood Outreach Alzheimer's Help. And so through that, we do a lot of advocacy. We do education, outreach. We've done health fairs, resource fairs. Through that department, we do our Powerful Tools for Caregivers class, which is teaching caregivers how to put on that oxygen mask first. We also do a law enforcement and first responders training. And then in addition to that, we also partner with other local organizations. We have an upcoming organization we're partnering with. It is the South Carolina Respite Coalition. They are throwing a resource fair as well, so we are a big partner with them. And then in addition to that, when the Alzheimer's Foundation of America came to Columbia to do their, they call it Touring, Educating America tour, we facilitated their memory screenings for them as a partner. Wow. So it's all through that one department. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and every way that we can possibly care for caregivers is what we do.
Yes, definitely. Well, and Michel'le, November is National Family Caregivers Month. So that observation isn't just for caregivers of those with Alzheimer's, of course. It's the opportunity for all of us to learn about the challenges that caregivers of anyone face. But care for the elderly is something we'll all experience eventually. But when it became a personal experience for me, I realized how little we talk about it. And that's why when Brianna and I were talking about inviting you on the show, I was like, yes, let's let's do a show a month on this. I mean, because, you know, as somebody who has a 9-year-old son, you know, I know when I was pregnant, you know, you're looking at every week, oh, the baby's the size of a blueberry, or and then after when they're born, it's, oh, well, they're holding their head up, or they're rolling over, or they're crawling, or first steps, you know. There's so much dialogue around the early stages of life that there's nothing that really happens about the end stages of life. And it happens to everybody. You know, we all are born, and we all, you know, age, and hopefully after a long life have to deal with these situations. And so I very much experienced the sandwich generation of having to care for an elderly mother with memory issues and dementia, and still struggling with the fallout from all that, the stress and chaos it brings with it. But why is it important, from your expert perspective, to have these conversations, to have a plan, you know, with our parents and our children? Because it's inevitable.
It is, yeah. I think, to touch on a few things in perspective to that, we see more often than not, families are reaching out to us and they have no plan.
Yeah.
They have no idea what next steps are, what things look like for the future, and that's okay. And so when they reach out to us, it's, first off, let's bring you in for a consultation. Let's sit down and talk about where are you at currently, so we can assess needs. And then from there, we're able to provide next steps. And I would say to help prevent that sort of panic of when the onset of things like this happen, you have to come up with a plan early on. And so that's what we also advocate for, is making sure you've got wills, powers of attorney, make sure you've got your wishes stated to your loved ones. If you're caring for someone in the home, make sure you understand your loved one's wishes, because when they start, if they have memory loss, when they start to get to a certain point, they won't be able to advocate for themselves. So you will be advocating for them. And so we strongly stress being prepared ahead of time. And no one really wants to have these conversations, right? No one wants to talk about the inevitable things that are going to happen. But you have to look at it as you want to be prepared ahead of time versus trying to struggle to make decisions afterwards.
It's a gift to your family.
It is. It's a gift.
I had opposing experiences. My husband's father died at the end of 2020, and he was career military. So he had his will in a file. He had all the supporting documents to go with that, had an attorney hired to handle the probate, had his obituary written to a certain point, had copies of everything. You know, he had every desire of his where he wanted to be buried, and all pallbearers, all of that spelled out.
That's incredible.
So then his sons, who are devastated at the loss of their beloved father, his mother passed previously, just followed Dad's plan, you know, and meanwhile, my dad died unexpectedly a couple months later. There's nothing. We didn't know if he had a will, where he had a will. I mean, we're just calling people. We didn't know what bank accounts had whose names on it. And you have to start the probate process to even get access to some of these bank accounts. And like I was saying, it was a nightmare, and they hadn't downsized. So not only you're dealing with the death of a parent, you're dealing with another parent who's not in good health, and all their stuff. And it took years to get through all that, whereas it took months for my husband's family, you know, and it's a gift to handle all of that.
It is. And it especially if you have multiple different dynamics in the family, you have lots of different opinions happening, and we understand that that's a struggle to bring all those opinions together. And so if your loved one already has their wishes laid out, we're going to follow, everyone can agree at least to that. We're going to follow what our loved one wanted. So again, that's part of even our caregiver consultations and resource referrals, is when they come in, our family caregiver advocate asks, do you have a plan? If you don't, let's sit down and I can give you resources for a probate lawyer, for figuring out how to do medical healthcare POA, how to do making sure people are on bank accounts appropriately listed in the appropriate places, to make sure that other families don't have to go through what your family
Yeah.
went through. And we had a similar situation when my mom died. My mom did not have all the things in place.
Mhm.
It was unexpected, and so I think she kind of thought she had time, but
Yeah.
she was the caregiver for my grandmother. And so we were like, what's going to happen?
Mm.
And there was kind of a moment where we didn't really know what to do. Thankfully, she did have some things in place that we didn't realize later on, but I strongly advocate. I can tell you after my mom passed, the entire family figured out wills,
Yeah.
figured
Right.
out POV.
Yeah.
Like my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, everybody figured it out because you have to do it.
Yes.
But again, that's what part of what we advocate for at the ARK is making sure that families are prepared,
Yeah.
and having those difficult conversations. But they also can be fun conversations, as in, I went to a presentation one time from a funeral home, and they talked about how they're trying to make planning ahead very fun. And so it's like, okay, let's see what they say.
Yeah,
right?
Let's hear this pitch.
Let's hear this. And so it was fascinating, though. They talked about how one lady in general, she planned her funeral ahead of time, and she had it on a dinner cruise in the harbor. She wanted to be in a cheetah vase because that's what, she
Yeah.
said that she had an oyster party with cocktails, and I thought,
Yeah.
wow, that is kind of fun.
Yeah.
I could see that, But I think that it's all about perspective, right? Again, you're providing this gift for your family by preparing ahead of time for what is an awful, inevitable thing that's going to happen. So prepare your family, make sure you're prepared, make sure all the things are lined up.
Well, because part of what happens when you don't is, say you have a couple of kids, you may make an offhand comment to kid one about this part of how you would want your funeral handled or how you wanted to be buried, and make another comment to this kid. Unless those two kids are talking, you can't piece it together.
Right.
And, there's 6 of us in my family, and thankfully, one of my sisters had a few conversations with my dad and knew he wanted X, Y, or Z. But I would have assumed the opposite, of what they actually talked about, and we were able to piece it together.
Oh, sure.
But that doesn't always happen,
Right.
and you can't let serendipity manage your
Right.
way out of this world.
Right.
Yeah.
We've unfortunately got some calls before where it's been maybe a situation where a plan wasn't in place and mom or dad passed, and now the siblings are head to head.
Right.
And they
Yeah.
can't come to an agreement. They can't figure anything out. Now the caregiver that has called us is stressed out. They want to know what lawyers they can talk to, and then it just it continues to escalate. And so we try our best to de-escalate, to provide as much resources and advice as we can to make sure that the family is supported, but we never want it to come to that.
It's such an emotional time. Nobody
is.
is thinking logically, and that's where the plan comes in.
Right.
If you can make it
Right.
logical of, okay, even though I'm sad or distraught or surprised, this is what mom or dad wanted.
Right.
Okay, we're just going to march through this, and this is what they wanted. And have peace with that.
To have peace. That's really what it's about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Comfort and peace. So.
Yep.
Well, if you're just now tuning in, we are visiting with Michel'le Cathey, from the ARK of South Carolina, which provides Alzheimer's family support services. So we've been talking about a whole lot of that. Doesn't sound like y'all have enough time in the day to do any more than what you already are. One of the things we were talking about with Alzheimer's, of course, is memory, and joke about it. Try to make light of it. It's a serious subject, but one of the things that you always worry about is turning into your parents as you get a little bit older. And now that I'm in my 50s, I always remember when I was a teenager, my dad would always get stuck at the end of a sentence, and I would have to finish the word for him. And I'll be danged if I'm not getting to the point where I'll be talking and all of a sudden it's just like, mine goes blank.
Yep.
What's that word I wanted to say? And I just sit there for a second. I was like, oh no, turning into my father. It's happening. And my wife has already told me, if you turn into your father, you're going to go live with your father or somebody else, the other side of the family, not dealing with all the stuff that you do, and he's a little scattered here and there nowadays, but I'm going to hold firm. Hold firm.
Yep.
So I'm going to go take the memory classes.
Yes.
Do my homework.
There we go.
Get my brain all tuned back up.
Yeah. Do crossword puzzles and stuff.
It's never too soon to start working on your memory. So
This is true.
that's all I'm
This
saying,
is true.
Micah.
That sounded a little pointed there. Moving on.
Says the woman who is not 50.
Exactly.
We can send you a copy of the homework they do for the early memory loss if you like.
Right.
It's got some intense trivia and crossword puzzles in there.
No, I do like trivia.
He would be good at the
See?
trivia.
I do like
See?
trivia.
Yeah, Micah
There you go.
has lots of information in his head.
Lots of useless information.
It's a challenge accepted
Yeah,
then.
there we go.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you've ever flown on an airplane, as you mentioned earlier, you hear the phrase of you have to put your oxygen mask on first. And I feel like that is the basis of life, honestly, but very much the basis of when you're dealing with caregiving, no matter the age that you're caring for.
Right.
So earlier you mentioned your Powerful Tools for Caregivers program. Can you tell us a little more about that and just how you help caregivers learn to care for themselves and just how people can get involved with that program?
Absolutely. So I think Powerful Tools for Caregivers it speaks to National Family Caregiver Month, because that class is not just for those caregiving for someone with memory loss. It's anyone caring for someone with a chronic illness, a friend, spouse, partner. It doesn't matter.
Child with
special anything,
needs, yeah.
Anyone that you're caring for with any type of chronic illness. And it essentially teaches them just that, to put their oxygen mask on first, because you can't help others if you aren't taking care of yourself. So this 6-week course, it teaches caregivers how to prioritize self-care and prioritize the things that are important to them, because that equals better care for their loved one or whoever they're caring for.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a simple concept, but it gets lost in the day-to-day, hustle of life and raising kids while you're also caring for aging parents or things like that. And so we kind of slow it down, we bring it back, and we say, it's very simple. Create action plans. So they create an action plan each week that they come to do one thing for yourself. So we start with like a small step into creating these plans to where they're making sure that they're prioritizing themselves. And maybe the action plan was to read one chapter in a book. Again, it sounds so simple, but it starts to sort of wire their brain that, okay, I'm not selfish because I took 1 hour to myself. It's not greedy. I don't feel bad. So another thing we do too is making sure that they're managing that stress and guilt and all the things that they're feeling. And so we talk about that. We also provide them with communication tools so that they're able to ask for help, because a lot of times caregivers are afraid to ask for help, or they don't think that help is going to come. And so we teach them, well, here's how you can use iMessages to have conversations. So part of it is taking out the you in conversations and putting in the I. So I need help because I'm struggling, not I need help because you didn't do something, right? That's two different communication styles. And so there's research that shows that I messages really work in terms of getting positive communication back. And this is an evidence-based course that we are certified to teach. And so what it is it's free. It's free to the caregivers. Caregivers don't pay for anything, and they walk away with a book that teaches them these techniques, or can remind them, or they can refresh their memory on how to do certain things. And so they walk away with a load of tools to help them on their caregiving journey. And we've gotten a lot of feedback that it really did help. They're also in this class are other caregivers, right? So they're also creating friendship.
Those connections.
It's a social hour as well, to where they can hear and see they're not alone. Which is way different than being isolated in your home and thinking you are. Yes. And so this gives them just a brief glimpse. It's only 6 weeks, but it gives them a brief glimpse of, I can do this and I have a support system. And so that's really what it was aimed for. But in addition to that, we have something called the class leader training. So we train trainers to facilitate this program. And so we have trained trainers all throughout the United States, even into Canada, to be able to facilitate this program, because our goal is to reach as many caregivers as possible. And so, through Seattle, Oregon, everywhere in the United States, we have taught caregivers, we've taught trainers how to train caregivers to make sure that we are reaching, like I said, as many caregivers as possible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of training, you guys have even more training. You mentioned
Yes.
earlier that you provide first responders training. What does that consist of?
So that we are certified through the International Association of Chief of Police. It's another tongue twister. I have to close my eyes to say it out loud. And that is also a train the trainer program.
Okay.
And it is in a response to Alzheimer's disease. And so we train trainers, first responder trainers, how to respond to maybe phone calls where a loved one is lost and they have Alzheimer's disease, or maybe someone is upset and agitated. They don't understand where they are, so 911 was called. We teach them how to recognize the signs of dementia so that they can respond appropriately for both the safety of the first responder and the person that they are attending to. And so we've done a couple of trainings. We've done trainings all throughout the state of South Carolina. We are partnering with an organization to get our trainings back up in order in 2025. We're partnering with Together We Are Helping Hands. They are helping us get recertified through the academy, as well as we're adding an autism aspect to it as well, to be able to, again, teach first responders how to respond to where they can de-escalate the situation as quickly and safely as possible.
Yeah, so speaking of trivia, one of the things I came across internet was, I think it was somebody who was just showing how they dealt with their mom who wandered out of the house, had her purse, and she was determined she was going somewhere.
Oh, sure.
And instead of being, I guess, like negative and say, no, you can't go, and no, you can't do that, you sort of just redirect. Say,
Yep, redirection.
Yeah, Mom, we can do it, but it's a little cold outside. Why don't we go inside and get our coat first?
Yeah.
And then redirect them in that positive way. Or, we can go, or, take a little short walk around the block and then, right back to the house or something like that, where you're not fighting what they want to do. You're just sort of redirecting their impulses in a safe way to sort of, like you said, to de-escalate the situation. And I mean, if you don't have that kind of training, your first thing, no, you can't do that. Let's go back inside. Go back inside. Let's do that. And then you're sort of thwarting what they want to do, which can raise their anxiety levels even more.
Right. Yeah. Well, and especially in that case, if the caregiver hadn't noticed that their loved one had left or was wandering, and someone did respond, a first responder, it's, the first thing they ask for is identification. Well, if the person can't identify themselves, then it can escalate even quicker. And so it's recognizing that sign, they might have some sort of memory loss. They may not be able to identify themselves correctly. So let's start with a conversation of how to figure out how to communicate with someone with dementia. That's another thing we provide the first responders as well, is we provide them with a list of local resources. So if they are responding to a family call like that, they can give them, hey, here's a list of local resources in the area that might be able to help with whatever you guys have going on in the home. Again, it's about the caregivers and the safety of the community. It's about supporting the caregivers and making sure that they have every support possible. Making a dementia-friendly community.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. So it sounds like the ARK does a lot to support families. So one thing that you can do with your family is go to events, especially this fall. We're having beautiful fall weather right now. So
we are.
It continues. You have a big event coming up, the Retro Bash on November 24th. Can you tell us some more about it and how we can support?
Absolutely. So in honor of National Family Caregiver Month, we are throwing a Retro Bash. We're calling it Taking It Back to the Old Days, the good old days, excuse me. And so it's going to be reminiscent upon just the time period of 60s and 70s. We're going to have retro themed food, Coke floats, root beer floats, things like that. As well as we're incorporating some retro football jerseys because we recognize it's on Sunday. So you can't miss football Sunday, right? Yep. But it's all about just providing a fun and safe space for caregivers to come out, bring their loved ones, as well as honoring our volunteers as well, because our volunteers in our programs are kind of like caregivers. They become attached to the families and they really enjoy what they do. So it's about just bringing awareness and recognition to what these families are going through, but in a fun way, in a fun, retro, reminiscent way of the good times.
Yeah.
Well, folks, if you've been listening at all, you've learned that we have just a whole host of services that the ARK provides. And you might not have been able to take notes. So to learn more about what the ARK of South Carolina does, you can go to their website at thearkofsc.org. And you can learn more about their upcoming events by following them on Facebook and Instagram.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Well, and, I think that's going to do it for about time today. Thank you for tuning in to Power Talk. This is the official broadcast of your electric cooperative, and you can catch up on past episodes on streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. And as always, get a behind-the-scenes look on Berkeley Electric's YouTube channel. So until next time, this is Power Talk, signing off.